Welcome to Jaunty Haunts, the podcast about all things supernatural. After 30 years of keeping a secret, I'm finally ready to share with the world that I see ghosts. Yep, I've been having conversations with the other side while trying to keep up appearances. This podcast is all about getting spooky and connecting with others who might also sense, see, or feel things beyond the ordinary. We'll swap true tales of the seen and unseen, and maybe even laugh about the weird stuff we've experienced. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, come join me as we explore the paranormal. Let's connect, share, and maybe feel a little less crazy together. Welcome to Jaunty Haunts. Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode, Season 2, Episode 2, Talking with Charlie Mewshaw. I'm sitting down with Charlie Mewshaw, author and co-creator of Arcane Carolinas podcast and star of Discovery Channel's Lost Monster Files. We're diving deep into where science meets the paranormal, busting some so-called ghost gadgets live, and hearing about Charlie's adventures studying cryptids across the globe. But first, we're kicking things off with a chilling story featuring my special guest, Fernando. He had a terrifying run-in with an evil traveler ghost on a dark Las Vegas highway. It may not fit the theme of the week exactly, but the story was so good and scary, I had to share it with y'all. We're giving this one a CASPER rating of 4. I'm so excited. So please, without further ado, enjoy. Do you want to say your name or plug anything where people
sure.
can check you out?
This is Fernando Ragoza Jr. You can go by Nando. Check out some of my videos I directed on Trinoceros Films on YouTube. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at.
Perfect.
I was filming a documentary of a friend of mine, and the documentary led to me wanting to go interview his parents, and he lived in Las Vegas, and so the idea was I'm going to go pick him up, and then we're going to drive back in the same day back to college. And so I'm going to interview his parents, and we're going to pick him up, and so I'm going to be his ride. Go there, interview his parents, everything's fine. We start driving back. It's super late. We stayed way longer than we should have, hung out with his parents. And so we're driving back, and this is late at night. There's nobody else on the road, really, and it's just desert for miles. And, we're on this section of the freeway or the highway where it starts to do these weird loops of hills. Yes, yeah. Exactly. These hills. So we're going up, we're going down, and then on one of the downward things, I see a car behind us, and he's kind of swerving in and out of the lanes behind me. I'm like, that seems bad. Yeah. And I'm driving, just paying attention to him, and he, sure enough, he passes us, and he's still swerving around, and I'm like, that's weird. And my other friend in the backseat is he's still awake, but we're not really talking at that point. It's already kind of late in the night. And as I'm going, I forget about that car. And, it gets really quiet. I realize the back guy falls asleep. And we're approaching one of the towns that we've crossed through. And we're going down this hill. And I guess I must have zoned out or something. But, I see the green light ahead of me. And I think I'm just focusing on the green light, but I don't see the car in front of me where the guy is parked in the middle of the street, and he's out of his car, and he starts waving at us. Oh no! And I think it's the car that was swerving, and so he stopped in the middle of the road, and I'm like, oh shit! My reflexes are off, so I go, oh shit! I start to brake, and I start to swerve to the right. And my friend had woken up because when I tried to brake, the pasta went flying into the front, into the floor. He goes, "There's a car!" And so I'm and I swerve back onto oncoming traffic, and I swerve around the guy who's waving at us, and it was just this huge oh my god, we almost swerved and all this stuff. And I was just oh my god, my heart's beating. My friend in the back's awake, and he's just what just happened? What's going on? And we're just wow, that was really crazy. So we just kept driving, and I was all right, cool. I was all right, whatever, nothing weird happened after that until I got home, and I go back to my dorm room, and I'm all right, well, that was kind of weird. I go to sleep, and I have a dream that I'm in my car. For whatever reason in my dream, I'm driving my Tahoe down the back roads, going to my house, and I look up in the mirror, and I see facing sideways in the mirror this shadow, this hooded figure, and he's looking down, in my rearview mirror, and I'm driving. Again, I'm the only one on the road. The lights are like the only thing illuminating the highway in front of me. And this thing in the rearview mirror looks at me like that, and it says my name in a voice I've never heard before.
Whoa.
And it like froze me. Like, I get chills just thinking about it, but it froze me because I've never heard that voice in my entire life, and it scared me like I was gonna die.
Oh,
and I'm staring at it, and I wake up in my dorm room bed screaming. I've never had a nightmare where I was screaming before. And my roommate, who was like in the same room as me, he's like, Nando, you're all right? And I just remember opening my eyes, and I was like, ah, like that's how I woke up. And I was like screaming at the top of my lungs. Friend was like, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I think I just had a nightmare. He's like, oh, all right. So he goes back to sleep, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? So I go back to sleep, and I'm like, all right, well, whatever. The next day I plan on going to my parents' house because it's down the way for the weekend, do laundry. And so I go home, and that night I'm in my bed at my parents' house, and I start thinking about the voice. Mm-hmm. And as I'm laying there in bed, it's late at night. Again, I stayed up late. Everyone's asleep. It's quiet. I feel like I hear, like, I can't tell if it's in my head or if it's actually in the room, but I feel like there's a snickering or somebody's laughing. Stop. And I'm like, okay. Like, in my head, I'm like, that's weird. And I'm like trying to hear, and it's like, and then all of a sudden it goes, right in my ear. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I shoot up in bed and I go, what the fuck? And I say this out loud. What the fuck was that? No! Whatever the fuck that was, no! I do not want you here.
Good.
Right? And I'm like, fuck off. And I like go back down, and I put the blankets a little bit over my head, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? I don't like that. And I'm laying there, just kind of like trying not to move. And at the edge of my bed, I feel, again, this is late. I don't remember if this was me dreaming it or if this is actually something that happened. In my memory, I remember this vividly happening. Laying there with the blanket over my head, trying not to move, down by my ankles, I feel the bed's weight start to shift. Or at least the blankets, right? Not the bed, just the blankets start to feel like they're dipping. And I'm like, all right, is the blanket dipping just because it's in between my ankles, or is it dipping because something is trying to push down on it? And as soon as I start thinking that, I feel literally on my ankle a tug. And I feel the wrap of a hand around the blanket on my ankle and a tug. And I shoot up out of bed and I go, no, we're not fucking doing this. I sat up in bed and I stayed awake the whole fucking night, and I watched TV. And I was like, I'm not going to sleep tonight because fuck that. I told my mom the next day. She thought it was funny. Told my grandma about it. And she thought it was like, well, I have some holy water. You should take some holy water. And so I got some holy water from my grandma. And it was literally like in a water bottle. That I don't know why she had it. And so she's like, here, you can take some. And so I took some. And I just went around the corners and I was like, I don't know what this is doing, but please, like, God, take this away, whatever it was. So I don't know if it was just because it happened so close together, those nightmares or that dream or whatever it was, or the fact that maybe I was supposed to die on that road that night and something was still chasing after me or trying to tell me something, or the veil, because I was about to die, was just like kind of severed there for a minute and like something was trying to come through. But yeah, it definitely felt like something grabbed my ankle and did a little tug.
Have you had anything since that, or you felt fine after that?
After that, that was it.
Okay,
like, good. So I don't know if it was the holy water or what it was, or if it, like, again, like, was this my brain, like, just like triggered by that nightmare, or was this something else?
No way. I feel like if you were laying there and you heard like a little bit of like, and you're like, oh, maybe, you know, like that's like ruminating. Yeah. But to have such a visceral thing and a physical thing, that's like, no, that's not just your brain.
Fucking, wild, dude.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Dude, that's fucking wild.
Hey, Charlie, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I can. I'm just turning you up because I'm half deaf.
Same. I'm turning you up too. Thanks so much for taking the time to meet with me.
Yeah, no sweat. I found your podcast through the algorithm, so on Instagram. So finally I did something right. And I was like, I like this.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, I honestly, the Instagram algorithm has been like kind of the best thing since starting this podcast when it comes to like connecting with people, hearing their stories, and meeting so many other cool like creators and paranormal investigators. It's been such a treat. So I'm so thankful to the algorithm that we're here right now.
Right.
Well, I have like 20 questions. I kind of just wanted to spitball and kind of get some answers from you. Is there anything you want to like say or a certain way you want to introduce yourself before I jump into questions?
Sure. My name is Charlie Mewshaw. I am an author and researcher in what I describe as the weird space, right? Like all things paranormal, cryptid, UFO. I've written a book called Arcane Carolinas, which collects folklore, modern science, and verifiable history and their intersection out of the Carolinas. I co-host a podcast of the same name. I am one of the hosts on Discovery Channel's show Lost Monster Files, which dives into the archives of cryptozoologist Ivan Sanderson. So when I found your podcast, I was like, hey, yeah, I want to talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much for introducing yourself so well for anyone who might not know of you already. I've really been enjoying Arcane Carolinas. So I'm so feel so grateful that I've, like I was saying earlier, like the algorithm has brought us together because I work as a florist and like I take care of plants and stuff. And so I've kind of just had you in my ear all week, like while I've been, watering, cutting plants down and everything. And it's like, you have such a great niche in like this certain, corner of America where you can talk about so many awesome things that I've never even heard of before. So I really, really enjoy the show. You guys do a great job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, plants aren't the most talkative coworkers. We do spin-off episodes called Arcane Destinations, where we actually do talk about stuff outside of the Carolinas. It's still in the same feed, but like there's so much cool stuff out there and so many interesting people to talk to that we made the conscious decision pretty early on, like, hey, we really shouldn't pigeonhole ourselves to, like, we want to represent our home state and our home region, but we also want to be open to talk to other people as well.
Right, 100%. So cool. Okay, well, great. I'm going to jump into my first question here. Love the La Croix. Is that like that lemon flavor? It's kind of like vanilla lemon. What is that one?
Yeah, limoncello.
Yes.
What's your go-to flavor?
I love the limoncello, but also like the grapefruit. But that one is good because it really has like kind of a vanilla frosting whisper, like just slight sweetness to it.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Okay, sorry. Back to the spooky. I've got some more serious ones. I wrote these yesterday. Let me do this one.
I mean, we can talk about seltzer. I mean, we can play 20 questions on seltzer water.
Nothing is off limits. Great. But no, yeah. So doing some research, listening to the show, I heard that one of your first introductions to spooky and paranormal themes was like early Disney cartoons, specifically like those Halloween ones, the Magic Mirror specifically, the one where Donald Duck was listening to the news report that a gorilla was escaped and it turned out he was hiding in his house and all that. Would you say that was kind of the first thing that like induced this fascination into spooky and dark and cryptozoology, or was it like what was that inciting incident for you?
Definitely pop culture.
Cool.
And probably that, I think it was called Disney's Halloween Treat. There's actually two versions of it.
Okay, yeah.
I have a bootleg of them both. One was on The Wide World of Disney, which was like the weekly program.
Yeah.
That aired on whatever network. And then the other one was slightly longer and I think was like a Disney Channel exclusive. So I have no idea which one it was that I watched, but we taped it off of TV. And like I wore that tape out. I think between that and Ghostbusters.
The VHS was not working anymore.
Right. Like that was it. For better or worse, I was horrified by a specific episode of the Real Ghostbusters cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm old enough that it was airing. And it was like, it was a phenomenon.
Right.
And like I was just into it, and like it felt so real and so awesome, and like I would say it's either Ghostbusters or the Disney Halloween Treat or whatever it's called. Again, I know there's two different versions of it. If there's like some aficionado out there that's gonna correct me.
It's so funny, right? We think that like seeing these things when we're young would almost give us more of an aversion to the creepy, but I like how like that select few of us, it kind of made us more like, ooh, it was a fun, silly thing, even if it was scary.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Also, that does lead me onto something else. Last Halloween, we were watching so many scary movies that I ended up watching one on Disney Plus that was like from the 30s, and it was like the Hades and Persephone like Disneyfied version, and it's so funny to think that like little kids like in the early 1930s and 40s were watching this like, oh, because I was like, this is very scary even for early Disney.
Speaking of Disney spookiness, I do remember one specifically that scared me so bad I would watch it.
Wait, which one?
Mr. Boogedy.
Oh.
It's a Disney Channel or like Disney directed tape movie. It's probably not scary at all.
I'm gonna write it down.
Like now, it's probably not scary at all.
Yeah.
But tying back to the real Ghostbusters, the episode that scared me and like kept me up at night and like it was a problem.
Yeah.
Was the Boogeyman episode where Egon was afraid of the Boogeyman, and the Boogeyman like would come through this portal in the closet and like take kids in.
Oh my gosh.
That has nothing to do with the Mr. Boogedy movie,
right?
On Disney, but the naming convention was close enough that like 7-year-old, 8-year-old me was like, nope.
Yeah, that association.
Absolutely not.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's also like for mine, like my 90s kid version one was called Don't Look Under the Bed. Also about the Boogeyman. Okay. Yeah, like Disney Channel original movie. Like, yeah, man, Disney really scared us more than I think it was supposed to be scaring us.
They were not doing us favors. Maybe they were doing us favors. I don't know.
Yeah, depending how you look at it. Well, very cool. On to more scientific questions here, sure. because I am very curious about this. Given your background in natural resource science and technology, how do you integrate scientific methodologies into investigating cryptids and paranormal phenomena? Like if you were explaining it to a 5-year-old.
So I recently started doing, I am like the worst at social media. So I recently started doing reels that do just this called 90-second lectures, where I try to break down, pick a topic, any like paranormal thing or fad, like an EMF detector, like, through pop culture, for better or worse, we've been conditioned to see people on television shows walking around with an EMF detector going, something's here.
Yeah.
What I'll do is be like, let's think critically. Like, why would that be going off?
Right.
And then like explain how the device or technology works, what it's actually detecting, how that's one singular data point that you might be able to correlate with other data points to a phenomena, but that one thing in and of itself is not necessarily evidence of anything other than what it's built to pick up.
Yeah.
So from a technology perspective, I rely on breaking technology down into the simplest terms possible. I'm currently doing a series on what's referred to as the spooky Tesla spirit radio, because the urban legend is that Nikola Tesla made this radio and kept him up all night and he thought he was listening to spirits. Maybe he was. I don't know. If you're believing EVP, sure.
Right.
But for me, I find it really fun to explain the physics of like, okay, well, there's piezoelectric minerals and, they're able to respond in an electric manner to radio waves. So what he was actually doing was making a crystal radio kit like Radio Shack used to sell. It's just, it hadn't been invented yet, right?
Yeah.
But like, it would respond to light and temperature and, natural electromagnetic radiation in the environment. And so that's what he was hearing. And again, could that have been something? If you believe in EVP, absolutely. It could be.
Right.
But what we do know is how it caused it, right? So that's what I really like, is like figuring out the link. It's like, okay, we have technology that can detect something. Let's create as many data points as we can to see if we can connect the dots there. But in explaining it to a 5-year-old, I like to say, like, take all of that away and just understand how the technology works first.
Okay. Yeah.
So that you're not like running out and buying a gadget for too much money that you don't even really know how it works or what it does. Like, know your instrument, know what you're actually looking for. So that's on the technology side. And also collect as many data points as possible using as many different instruments as possible within your budget for your adventure. The other thing that I try to drive home on those 90-second lectures is don't run out and buy the device that like has a cool box or label on it. Learn to understand the technology first, because you can probably find the same thing that's not marked as a spirit radio for a lot less money. Right. Or even build your own.
Yeah.
And that's fun, because then you can tune it.
Right.
And experiment and learn how it works, and you picked up a skill along the way. On the natural resource side, which is more of the cryptozoology side, yes, technology is very important in tracking animals, right? Which is what field work in cryptozoology is. You're trying to track an animal that may or may not exist, trying to find it. I think that the same sort of, I don't want to say cynical, but hopeful, I'm trying to think of a good way to put it, optimistic cynicism, I guess. It's not capital S skepticism, because if you have like big skepticism, like nothing's real, like that's not what it should be. It should be more of like a, how do we prove that this is real? Not like prove that it isn't. So for that, go ahead.
No, I was saying, and that feels most scientific, right? Testing theories, trying things out, staying open, as opposed to just being like, no way, there's no way,
Yeah, I think it's fun to like have a hypothesis and be like, I don't know, maybe this thing is real.
Right.
Let's see if we can find it.
Right.
But you do have to use the process of elimination to rule out what I'll refer to as mundane explanations, right? And start taking stuff off the table as quickly as possible. Ruling out environmental factors, like is the environment where the creature was supposedly seen even capable of supporting not even a breeding population of animal, but like maybe just life. Like, is it capable of supporting life? Like, let's take one animal. And like, is there enough food here? Is there enough water here? What's the temperature like based on the animal type? There's no way that an amphibian is going to live in an Arctic environment,
right.
Like that kind of thing. So we're not looking for like snow frogs in the Himalayas.
Right.
I just made that up, but maybe that's a good
that's probably already a cryptid, right? Yeah.
Right. But taking as much off the table as possible from the legend, while also looking into the history of the region, of the larger region. So you've got your environmental factors for like physical environment, and you've got your environmental factors for folklore, tradition, and belief structures, and like why might this story persist in this particular area? Where does it come from? What's the earliest documented story? Who told it? What motivations might they have had for telling it? And you can flush out quite a bit of baloney doing that in the cryptid space and in the paranormal space, really.
Yes.
You can do the same thing
100%.
with a haunted house. There was a haunted house story out of Wilmington, North Carolina, that I was able to be like, oh, the guy that wrote the collection of ghost stories from the area wrote that story, which is the first time it was told. He did it for his ghost tours. That house wasn't built until 100 years after, he said.
Oh my gosh.
Pulled the land records and was just like, oh,
yeah.
Okay, well, he made it up to make money. Like, I get it.
Right.
Like, okay,
right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Take that story off the table.
Right. I know.
But you can do the same thing with natural resource science, I guess is my point, is you can look at environmental factors. You can look into land use records and determine, like, has the land always been the way that it is now, or has it sort of been like formed as the environment been artificially formed through development?
I love that. Thank you. No, don't apologize. That was great. Those were great explanations, and it's kind of led my brain on a couple other trails I want to ask you about. But it's funny you bring up the stuff about obviously just testing everything, going through everything. I always call it going through my Rolodex of like, okay, hold on, was this on? Was this the, like, especially when, encountering a spirit, right? And the challenge of people doing things just for fame or monetization. And that's what I was like, I'm really afraid to like be open with kind of my perspective here. But it was so funny. Just quickly, we were, asleep the other night, and it was like literally 3 a.m. and we heard this like crash. And I've talked about it on the show that like our apartment building is haunted without a doubt. And because I talk about it so much, my partner, he's kind of a scaredy cat. He like jumped and he's like, oh my God, and like we have a doorman. I'm not afraid someone's broken in, but I think our mind's first reaction is to jump to ghost. And I felt so happy because I was like, no, we just put up photos on the wall using command strips. It got very humid today. The temperature changed drastically. And I didn't even get up. I was like, it was just a painting. Don't worry. And sure enough, it was a paint. So it's like,
awesome.
We want to jump to the spooky first. And it's like, hold on. Like, let's not do that, for our own sanity even.
Yeah. And I think it does a disservice to the true cases of the unexplained, right? Like,
right.
We have to be, what's the term? A little bit credulous, right? We don't want to be incredulous. We don't want to accept everything. But we don't want to be fully credulous either. We just have to be discerning,
right?
I think. And
okay, well, on the line of this, there might not be a very simple answer, but I am curious. Sure. And you might get asked this all the time, so my apologies if you do. But like, do you have any, fast and like true beliefs about the paranormal? And cryptids and cryptozoology, like, are there things that you're like, I'm just generally open, I'm a scientific person, or you're like, no, I definitely believe that XYZ is real?
Yeah, so I believe that there are things that we cannot explain. I believe that there are phenomena. We'll start with ghosts.
Great.
We'll jump way into the deep end, and then we'll get cryptozoology is easy because
really?
like it's so easy because like the giant squid was a cryptid, 100 years ago. So it's like cryptozoology is easy. Like, yeah, I believe in crypto. I believe there's value in pursuing undiscovered animals of legend. That one's easy. Take that, like, done. Yep. I don't think that everything that gets called a cryptid exists.
Right.
I think we're taken on a case-by-case basis. I don't think there's like one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eaters or whatever.
Like Mothman and things like that, like very popularized one, right? Of like,
right.
Yeah.
A lot of layers to peel back there and work through. Not willing to like jump in the deep end and say, yes, this definitely exists. But as a field, I think cryptozoology is completely like awesome. And I think that it's probably easier to get concrete evidence of an undiscovered animal than it is to quantify whatever environmental signatures a spirit may leave. But that brings me to my next point. So I'm ping-ponging around. Sorry. Welcome to my ADHD.
That's fine. Yeah, that's totally fine.
So with spirits, we'll use that term like broadly, right? Like I'm going to use that to encompass non-corporeal entity that is a global phenomena throughout history. People have reported, some people can see them. Some people have had one-off experiences. Some people have inexplicable experiences. I have family members. Everyone knows somebody.
Right. With like, some sort of experience.
Even if they haven't had an experience themselves, they either know somebody directly or know somebody that knows somebody that has no reason to make it up.
Right. 100. Yeah.
Absolutely no reason to make it up. It can't be explained. So I believe there's something going on. I just don't think I have not seen a satisfactory, quantifiable explanation.
Yeah.
I took a dig on EMF meters.
I want to hear about this
earlier because I feel like this is where pop culture bleeds into good research. So Ghostbusters. Again, this is like the fifth time I mentioned Ghostbusters. We all know Ghostbusters. They have little PKE meters and they walk around and the antennas go off. And like it's super cool. Somewhere along the line, excuse me for 1 second, I'll go grab one.
Yeah, okay, cool.
This is a cheap one. But somewhere along the line, like
I love that you just have one.
Well, I'm in my garage. Your hardware, my electronics workbench is right over there. Your like standard like electromagnetic field tester.
Yeah.
That electricians use daily to trace wires in a wall.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that's what they're actually for.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I was cutting into a wall at one point to like replace a switch.
Yeah.
And I was just like beep, 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 beep. And my wife comes by and jokingly says, "Any ghosts in the wall?"
Yeah, there's a ghost in the wall, yeah.
I'm like, that's not what I'm doing right now. But like, it's just a tool, right? That you use to test shielding. Like, look at any piece of electronics, right? And it's got the, let me make sure I get my federal acronym right here. FCC, maybe? Federal Communication? Yeah. Emissions testing, right? So this little gadget has to meet certain emissions testing and emissions exposure requirements. That's why computers have metal shielding, and the way they test those is with an EMF detector to, like, and they'll be like, oh yeah, no, that's fine. That, that passes. We can manufacture to this standard. Somewhere along the line, this really mundane but awesome tool appeared on some paranormal investigator show, and somebody was like, I'm getting fluctuations. It means there's a ghost here.
Wow.
If their cell phone is getting a call and it's close enough to the phone,
right,
it's going to go up. If data is moving, like if it's got a data transfer, if you have your phone set to like automatically pull, emails every 30 minutes or whatever, and it knows to do that sync, like, guess what? Those are radio waves. Those are electromagnetic waves in your environment.
Oh my God, that is great. I'm so happy you're explaining this. Yeah, this is great.
And so then, like, you look at where people explore, right? And, like, I don't do it much anymore, but in my younger days, I would go, before I had a family and have to be in bed early, I would, like, go into places that you probably shouldn't be because they're closed,
right?
But like old industrial buildings,
right.
Full of metal, and like, you know what I mean? So
loose
like radio
wires, just hanging.
Right, radio waves are just ping ponging, or electromagnetic fields are just ping ponging everywhere in these environments, and it's just like when I see people be like, I was in this old factory, and the EMF went off, so there was definitely a ghost there. It's like, dude, that doesn't mean there was a ghost there. That does mean that there was a fluctuation in the electromagnetic field in that moment at that time.
Right.
And that in itself can be a valuable data point, right? So like, it's worth keeping. The same thing with like temperature drops. When people are like, I hit a cold spot.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's a very interesting data point. Like, what else was going on? Like, let's paint the full picture.
Right.
So, I feel like for me, there's all these little bits and pieces that if we could somehow tie them together in a way that made sense and didn't feel so subjective,
right,
I'd be like, yeah, that means there was a ghost there.
Yeah.
But that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
So, for my mind to like say, there's enough, we've risen to the standard of evidence. So for me, it does come back to, do I believe that something's happening? Yeah, absolutely. I do. I think there's stuff that we can't explain that we don't understand. And I would love to work with or learn from or even be alive when somebody else figures out how to
have evidence. Yeah.
Right. Connect all these different dots. And like, I like to think of ghosts as a physics problem.
Yes.
It just hasn't been solved yet.
Yeah.
I caught a lot of flack for this, but it's true, and they'll teach it in like Physics 101 because it's fun. Purple's not a real color.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not on the visible light spectrum. Like,
right.
Yes, I see purple, you see purple. We know what purple is.
Right.
But the way our brain processes the input is why we see purple.
Right.
Right? It has to do with our photoreceptors. And the way it's like, okay, well, it's not this and it's not this. We're going to call it that.
Right. Just like how our brain perceives it, even if it's not really existing.
Right. So tying back to the EMF detector to keep things somewhat coherent.
No, it totally is.
We are like computers, right? Or transceivers, because we can receive signals, we can interpret those signals, and we can also generate signals. I'm talking to you, you're talking to me.
Yeah.
Like, we are generating sound at each other. Those sound waves are, traveling through space and landing in each other's speakers. So I like to think, one, the ghost star physics problem hasn't been solved yet. Two, what if there's some kind of switch, like, in the brain?
Oh, yeah.
That some people have on a little bit more than others, right? Like, maybe some people are just a little more in tune with whatever, like, way the brain processes those things that we don't currently have an explanation to that makes them more susceptible.
Absolutely. Able to see the purples. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Able to see the purple. That's a perfect way of, yes. I love that.
I love that. And I think I love that as well. And I think that's what so much of my journey is coming to try to also find proof and understanding. There's a great book I have. It's called Spook by Mary Roach, where she talks about a bunch of, different scientists and people who've been trying to find evidence and prove, the existence of spirits through time, obviously to no success. But yeah, the small things, and these energetic things, and like the weight tests and all these other things. It's like, man, I do wonder, right? Like, in our lifetimes, will there be enough evidence to have some sort of proof beyond just like the few handful of people who are like, oh, do you see that guy? No? Oh, great. Okay, just me. Awesome.
Right. Yeah, I think that it's really important to give weight to people's subjective experience, right? Because it's literally all we have right now. And I think that it's good and it's useful. And I don't want to sit here and say that subjective experiences aren't valuable, because that's not the point I'm trying to make, just to be clear.
No, you're making total sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. I appreciate everything you just said. And I thank you for explaining how the EMF detectors actually work, because I mean, what you said in the beginning was so great, of like understanding the technology that you're actually using before just investing in it. People are so quick to just go and buy these kinds of tools without even knowing what they are. And I've been curious as well, as like, is there any validity to these tools,
We can play with it right now.
Because I've thought the same thing. Like, if someone's phone goes off, would that pick up something? So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Oh, yeah, I did not like that. All right. So can you see we're at 0?
Yeah. At this moment, what you can't see is Charlie is holding an EVP detector, and he is putting it up to his cell phone. And the cell phone is causing the machine to light up and spark. It's like there's something going on.
It's like I can
wow,
That's not what I'm saying, but I can like find a spot
to raise it.
Like, whoa, something's going on.
Yeah. The only one I have seen that I am curious on your opinion actually is like the infrared, like the heat signatures, if they're getting like physical shapes of like presence in an empty room. What do you think about something like that?
Those are cool. I think that those tie in well with the Xbox Connect, which I'm not super. I'm blanking out on what the technology inside the Xbox Connect was, but some of the people detectors that automatic driving cars also use the same thing.
Like Tesla and stuff. Yeah,
and it's like when the Kinect came out, people were having fun with it because that had heat signatures on it. Like, it had thermal, and it used like a combination of different sensors to be able to tell when you were moving or doing like your Dance Dance Revolution game, or whatever game you were playing. So yeah, I think those ones are really weird, and I don't have a good explanation for it.
Okay.
And again, it's one of those things where I'm like, that's a super interesting data point, and it needs to be combined with other data points, but it's not without merit. The same way EMF readings aren't without merit. You just you got to have more than one point, to build the whole argument that like, okay, this is what we detected, this is what we saw. Let's try to find another one and see if all the same data points exist there.
Yeah.
Because then we have, consistency, and we're like, okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Right.
Instead, we have all these sort of like disparate things. We're like, there was a weird thing on the Tesla self-driving screen by a graveyard.
Yeah.
There was a weird thing on a heat signature. There was a weird thing on the EMF. Well, did they all happen at once? No, it's just one.
I know. Yeah, it's like not repetitive. It's crazy.
Right.
So cool. Well, thank you for indulging me there with these other tools. I want to jump back to Arcane Carolinas though, and I'm curious. Sure. You've explored numerous regional legends, and I want to know if a specific story or area has kind of resonated with you the most, and why, if so.
I'll do a story that resonated, and then an area.
Great.
So I think the story, it's not the most exciting story that we've ever covered, but it was the first one where we were able to find verifiable history and identify a person did exist in the area where the piece of oral tradition came from at the time that the legend was supposed to have happened.
Wow.
And that's a story called The Devil and Hezekiah Jones. And the legend basically goes, Hezekiah Jones was a terrible guy. Just awful, awful person. And on his deathbed, the devil came and dragged him out of his cabin. And and there's obviously a lot more embroidery on the story.
Yeah.
But like his two daughters said, you know, like, this is what happened. We were there. He was dying. He sat up straight in bed and started screaming. The door flew open. We ran and hid, and then he was gone.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's really freaky, and it's told like a really good ghost story,
right?
Like,
right.
really, like the way it's written is like really, really good. And I could only find it in one book of North Carolina folklore, so I was like, "There's no way there's anything to this."
Yeah,
it was a great story.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
There's no way there's anything to this. I can't get a full episode out of this. So I started digging, and I was like, well, you know, little details. I'm like, it's supposed to take part in this region. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, and there's that river. Okay, well, the river is there, and then I'm like, all right, Jones. We'll start with just Jones. I'm like, oh, Joneses, that's expected, like around, you know, the 1800s or whatever. And I'm like, all right. And I'm like, all right, H. Jones. I'm like, oh, I got an H. Jones. So I got two H. Joneses. That might not work. I'm like, oh, the other H. Jones is in the mountains. Well, what's this H. Jones? Let's go to death records and, you know, cemetery records. I'm like, holy shit, it's Hezekiah Jones.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah. I was like, the guy existed. I'm like, did he have daughters? It's like, yeah, he had a family. And like, we were able to like figure it out and like narrow it down. And that was pretty early in the show.
Yeah.
So like, we hadn't quite hit our stride yet with like our episode format and like cadence and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But that still was the moment that I was like, we've got something here. Like, this is awesome. Like,
yeah.
We are definitely doing this until we run out of stories, and we are never going to run out of stories. Like,
oh, that's
this
so
is
cool.
so fun.
Yeah.
To like validate the historical part of folklore. It's,
right.
like, so awesome, especially when it's a scary story. Do I think that like Satan himself kicked in his door and dragged this guy out of his bed? Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
It's probably a cautionary tale about like, don't be a dick.
Right. Right.
But it's still awesome.
Yeah.
So probably the part of North Carolina that has like that I didn't give a second thought to before the show that has really stuck with me is the town of Bath. It's the first port in North Carolina. And I took my family there during lockdown, like COVID lockdown, for a long weekend. And I was like, there's a bunch of weird stuff in Bath. There's, you know, the devil's hoof prints. We have a lot of things named after the devil.
Yeah.
So there's the devil's hoof prints. There's Blackbeard's ghost. Blackbeard's ghost is also everywhere in North Carolina, North and South Carolina. Like, I'm pretty sure I could say like Blackbeard's ghost is in my garage.
He like really got around. It seems like yeah.
Yeah. There's an old what was the name of the era? I'm blanking out because I'm excited. The Great Awakening. During the Great Awakening, like theological Reformation era, there was a traveling minister that put a curse on the town of Bath because they liked to dance. Like, I'm not making this up. Like
Footloose.
Fantastic. Yes. Yeah. We make that reference. Like, doing the episode, my co-host on that was like, "Wait, are you telling me that this is like the opposite of the town in Footloose? Like they just refuse to stop dancing?" I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much. They like to party."
So funny.
So the town of Bath, because I think it embodies the perfect mix of like verifiably weird history,
right,
and spooky stories. Oh, there's also like it sounds like poltergeist phenomena based on the story and the legend and the verifiable history. Mm-hmm. But it's called a witch tale. They're like, oh, it's the witch of Goose Island, and it's like, or Goose Creek. And it's like, it really sounds more like poltergeist activity than a witch. But
yeah.
But there's a lot of like verifiable history there that also lines up with really creepy and funny weird stuff. So I think the town, I wound up getting like 4 or 5 episodes out of it.
That's so
did, like,
cool.
a whole running series.
Yeah. I would love to.
That run of episodes.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I feel like that'd be like living somewhere like Salem or something where you just have like a crazy history. Like, it's so fun to just have like all these.
That's kind of how it is, but there's nothing there. There's nothing there. It's like what happened was a larger port opened a little bit north, and then that minister was like, "See, I did that. I cursed the town."
Yeah, I was gonna say it must still be cursed. That must be why.
So there's like a couple. There's a couple nice older houses on the water that you can like Airbnb,
Okay.
or Vrbo. But beyond that, like, there's nothing there.
Wow. Okay. Well, in the realm too of like things that kind of mean something to you, I wanted to ask, I did kind of a recent episode called Hometown Heroes where I talk about like cryptids and spiritual haunts that are local to my small town because it has this sort of, way of carrying down messages to keep people safe regardless of like the truthfulness of these paranormal stories or not. It sounds exactly like you're talking about like folklore, finding if there is any truth to these. I feel like you mentioned something in your hometown, like what was it, the Foggy Bottom Monster, something like that? Was that like? Do you have any other, like hometown sort of like local lore or folklore that you like? I don't know, or that something that you grew up hearing about?
Yeah, the Foggy Bottom Monster was definitely just like older kids trying to keep us out of their BMX ramp.
Oh, okay. Did it work though? Did it scare you enough?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We didn't go down there.
Wow.
I think we all rode our bikes down there like once or twice and like wiped out on the ramp, and the older kids laughed at us and told us the monster was going to eat us. They were, it was a different time.
Yeah.
Kids on their bikes farther away from home than they should be, wiping out in the woods while older kids were probably up to no good.
Right.
But it worked.
Yeah.
But more contemporarily, stuff that I think is interesting or endearing about where I live is probably the Devil's Tramping Ground. Like I said, we have everything.
The devil, yeah,
wow. That was our very first episode for Arcane Carolinas, and that has a lot of verifiable history. It's really weird. I actually have I went out there and dug up some dirt a couple of years ago before they had the no trespassing sign, and like the legend goes that you can't grow anything in this patch of cursed dirt. But I was able to grow some grass in it.
Oh, hey. All right.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was fun, right? It was the very first Arcane Carolinas episode. It's like 20 minutes from my house. I've taken my kid there for a picnic. I've done soil testing on the dirt there. I've done, I guess you could call it an agricultural experiment where I attempted to grow something in the cursed dirt because I did the testing on it. I was like, this should sustain life. I mean, I've been there. I see that there's nothing there.
Right.
But this should sustain life. So let me just take some grass seeds and sprinkle those in there and see if they'll grow. And I was able to grow them. So yeah, I think that one is special. Just because I don't know if it's haunted.
Right.
Some people will tell you it is. I haven't had any experiences there. I think a lot of kids probably used to camp out there a lot, and maybe that's why there's nothing growing in the circle. But certainly the legend predates modern era. It goes back to like colonial times. So I don't know. It's fascinating and weird and has real history behind it, and people have weird experiences there, and yeah, I like it.
That's so cool. The woo-woo, witchcraft part of me, right, goes like, okay, well, you could take it home and grow something in it because it left that hollowed ground, right? If the area is cursed, then you remove the dirt, not scientific at all, totally woo-woo. I'm like, yeah, wait, how would that work? But
we talk about that. I've talked about that. It would seem that there are places where the veil is just a little thinner, right?
Right.
Maybe that's one of those places. I don't know.
That's very cool. I want to check that out. I want to do some research on that area. Oh, hey there, listeners. Courtney here with Jaunty Haunts. Sorry to interrupt this paid programming, JK, this programming, to recommend some podcasts that you should listen to and that you should check out. These are creators who I have done some interviews with and spoken with, and their shows are awesome. So, first show is the Red Treehouse podcast. This is your official invitation to join Will in the Red Treehouse, where he'll tell you the creepiest, eeriest, and most terrifying tales to keep you up at night. And along the way, you'll be challenged to consider what you believe. Does the paranormal and supernatural really exist, or is it a figment of an overactive imagination? I mean, we know what I think, but episodes release twice each week and can be found wherever you stream podcasts. It's a scary world out there, Let's explore it together in the Red Treehouse. So guys, check out the Red Treehouse podcast. Another one is Arcane Carolinas. Check out Arcane Carolinas for an informed but fun-spirited look at the verifiable history and science behind stories about ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and plain old weird stuff. Their research methods have turned up enough surprising information about the origins of lore that the Arcane Carolinas books have been preserved in state archival libraries. Arcane Carolinas is available on all major podcast services. Do you question reality? Are you drawn to UFOs, time slips, premonitions, or the mysteries of consciousness? Then you need to check out the Close Encounters Club podcast. Hosted by Justin Gearhart, a skeptic with an open mind, Close Encounter Club features real people sharing their encounters with the unexplainable. He's joined by his producer Josh, chiming in from Australia with his own curious takes. They also bring on scientists and experts who are actually trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So, if you've ever stared at the sky and felt like something was staring back, this one's for you. Search Close Encounter Club wherever you get your podcasts. Tell them Jaunty sent you. Another one to check out is Opening Kill. Opening Kill is the new podcast that covers the terrifying world of horror films. From the latest movie news to an in-depth look at a featured film and a peek at the chilling horror films to come, Opening Kill has you covered. Whether it's gore, suspense, or supernatural thrills, Opening Kill is the ultimate horror deep dive. Hosted by Brian O'Connor and Michael Duran. Listen to Opening Kill on your favorite podcast platform every Thursday. And also Believing in the Bizarre podcast. Also guys, Hidden in the Shadows podcast, another great one. And just for funsies, just to shout it out there, maybe they'll hear one day, maybe I'll meet them, I don't know. My favorite all-time fun, spooky paranormal podcasts are, of course, Spooked by Snap Judgment, A Funny Feeling podcast with Betsy and Marcy, and Ghosted by Roz Hernandez. So just some fun recommendations for you guys. I love to boost and promote other podcasts that I resonate with. If you want a shout out, please reach out. I'd love to spread the word. Anyway, back to the show. Well, I know we've got just, we're in our last 20 minutes here, so I'd love to kind of switch gears if that's okay with you. And just kind of hear.
I'm sorry. I'm super long-winded.
Do not apologize. Your answers have been really, really cool. I think, I'll go on a little tangent for a second. It's like so many of the people that I talk to, it's a very harsh, black and white belief of I'm a total skeptic. I don't believe this. Here's why I don't believe this. Or like, I'm all in, everything is real 100%. And also I can, talk to angels and they help me fly. It's just like
Correct.
Such opposite sides of the spectrum. So I love hearing like a very analytical, scientific approach to a lot of these questions. So I thank you. I really do.
Yeah. I want to believe.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you're open to it, right? You're not like discounting anything, but I think it's like you said, like we have to be a little credulous, right? Like we have to also be like reasonable,
Right.
But yeah, I would love to hear, can you share some insights into the process of, filming and working on Discovery Channel's Lost Monster Files? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I had done public television before for a series called Sea Island Spirits, which was like a South Carolina public television miniseries. And they were absolutely lovely and wonderful, and it was nothing like working for the Discovery Channel. So it was like I went in thinking, and that's not a knock on either of them,
right?
So I went in like, oh yeah, whatever, I've done that. That's fine, like no.
Yeah.
No, I was, I think it became real. Like I realized it was going to be different when I landed in British Columbia for the first episode, where we were going to go look in the mountains near the Ruby Creek, where the famous Abominable Snowman or Snow Squatch sighting there in Ivan Sanderson's files. So that was our first episode that we filmed. And I got in the car at the airport, and I had the address of where I was supposed to head to meet up with everybody. And I realized that it was like hours and hours and hours from the airport. I was like, oh, I am really going out here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, like, you tell yourself, like, yeah, we're really doing this. We're really going out in the woods. This is going to be great. But, like, I guess I just didn't realize, like, how far out some of the stuff was going to be.
Right.
And that's when it became like really real. And then I get there and I'm like, oh, all right. And they're like, all right, here's your gear. Here's your tents. You're going to need to set these up.
Wow.
Here's your backpacks. Here's your snow gear. We get to stay warm. Blah, 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 blah. Here's your crew. They're going to be with you. It's like, all right, go get them.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Like, okay.
You're like, is this Survivor? I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was just, I don't know what I expected going in other than a good time. And they certainly delivered. And I got to go and see places that I'm like, I would never even know how to find this. Like in a million years. Like Alaska was another one on Kodiak Island where just walking around the island and like hanging out. There's more bears than people on that island.
Right. Yeah.
And there's like sharks in the water and like everything wants to kill you.
Right.
And eat you. Like find myself like walking through the woods and then you hear like what sounds like, so when bears walk they like a big bear will make like an exhale sound like as it lumbers. This is terrible radio. I apologize.
No, that was good. Yeah.
But like walking and then hearing that like up around the bend, you're like, whoa, do you hear that? It's like, I don't know that we should keep going that direction.
Right.
So it was exciting. I guess that was the experience. It was exciting and it was fun and more fantastical than I could have ever imagined.
That's great. That's a great answer. That's very cool. I think I lived in LA, 6 years before I came out here and working in TV and film a little bit. It's funny. I think people have this, expectation of like crazy glamour and like being so, showy. So I love hearing like the truth behind this. And obviously, Lost Monster Files is kind of a different, type of show depending on, what you're looking at. But it's very cool to hear that you guys literally were like camping in the snow and like trekking out into the wilderness like that. That's insane.
I was like, when we were going to Alaska, I was pretty stoked. I was like, sweet, we get to be on a boat, right? We're looking for a sea monster. Awesome. They got heat on a boat.
Right.
Yeah. They were like, it's still cold.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You're like, we don't need to worry about any cryptozoology, any unknown creatures. There's enough creatures here that want to kill us. We can just keep moving.
Right.
Yeah, I'm from Lake Tahoe originally, and so I like grew up with bears right all around, and that was a good impression of like the exhale walk. But there's been so many times too, like especially as teenagers, right? Like hiking out really late, and you hear that twig crack, and that it's like, all right, let's keep walking.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. Okay, so looking ahead, what areas of unexplored folklore or paranormal phenomena are you like really eager to investigate?
So on the folklore side, I'm working on the third Arcane Carolinas book right now.
Cool.
Like halfway done it. So if I keep my act together and stay on schedule, that'll be out this fall. So I'm really looking forward to getting that done because that involves a lot of like talking to archival libraries and digging up like, land use records like I mentioned before, birth and death records, and census records, old dusty historical documents, newspapers, and crap like that. So I love, from the folklore perspective, I love that, and that project is front of mind right now. On the paranormal side, I haven't really been doing much, to be honest. That's one of the reasons why I started like doing more on social media. Instagram specifically, that's the only one I'm on. Because it was an excuse to do little experiments and build things and share them with people and like show like this is how a crystal receiver works. And now I have a crystal receiver. So now I can play with my crystal receiver, and like
I don't know what that is. Can you explain that a little bit actually?
Yeah, sure. So like the crystal radio that I mentioned earlier.
Right.
It's a piezoelectric or piezoelectric, however you want to say it, mineral or crystal. And you connect that you make an antenna that receives, electromagnetic radiation and radio waves and, whatever. When I say radiation, I literally mean like radio waves. I don't mean glow in the dark. So you wind a coil of that and then you just play with it and you have a little piezoelectric earpiece that has the right, the right properties to be able to actually listen to what the rock is receiving. And I say rock because it's literally a mineral. And as that mineral, fluctuates electrically from outside sources, you can hear it. And that's the Tesla Spirit Radio, the Nikola Tesla Spirit Radio.
Okay.
So again, if you're into EVP as something that's real, I don't know that I am.
I don't know either. I go back and forth, but sorry.
Yeah. I feel like it's a very pure way of doing it because you're working with a raw mineral. It's not like a digital signal being transferred. Like it's literally just the natural electricity around you being translated through a mineral into a signal that you can hear.
Wow. Okay. So can I ask quickly then? Because I'm like I said, I lived in LA. I'm doing this woo-woo stuff. I've got shit like this everywhere. I got like a million crystals. Did these actually have like energetic properties?
Certain ones. Hold on, let me grab
it. Okay. Take your time.
So here is, if you can't get a rock, which you can, you can also use certain diodes. Like this one is made of germanium. So, this is an old Radio Shack or Mammoth Electronics. I forget what the source was. It's a circuitry component, right? Like crack open something in your house, it's probably got one of these in it. Like that'll work too. That's obviously processed. Like I said, you can use a raw mineral as well. And not every mineral has those properties. So you'll want to look up different ones. Some are more sensitive than others. So no, you can't use the cool geode necessarily.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah, I feel like I have this huge collection of them now, and I'm like, I guess they're just art at this point, but that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so you can do that, and so from a paranormal perspective, I look forward to looking ahead, continuing making little reels that hopefully give people just a little bit of education and spark curiosity.
Yeah.
And little science projects. I don't know how else to put it. Like I want people to like do stuff besides scroll on their phones. Yeah, they'll find it by scrolling on their phone, but maybe then they'll go read a book.
Right.
And maybe then they'll go be like, oh, I can build this for. They sell crystal radio kits on Amazon for $20.
Yeah, I was going to say, even if they take a break for an hour and go outside and do something like this. Yeah, 100%.
Right. It's like grown up Legos, right? Like just go put some stuff together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and then on the cryptozoology side, I would love to get back into Sanderson's archives and keep doing that work, but we'll see. I don't have any news on that right now. So.
Cool. Okay. Well, great. I'll just ask one more question, then wrap it up. We've been going on so many awesome tangents, so I want to ask you my favorite thing I've been asking everybody in this sort of, paranormal spooky realm. What do you love to do that has nothing to do with this, right? Like, what are things that bring you so much immense joy, or like is a great way to change it up when you're reading about, the Hezekiah and the devil all night? Like, how do you like lighten up love it. Pac-Man, great. Okay, so video games in general, retro nostalgia.
I like. So the reason I have all this stuff laying around is because it's fun to restore those.
Cool. Okay.
I think it scratches that. I've talked a lot about verifiable history and in general, and I feel like video games, specifically arcade cabinets, are this like wonderful piece of Americana and history from a very specific moment in time. And you can go get like the kits of the new ones and the reproductions, and those are fine, right? But like there's still, this thing is from 1981. It's still got the tax stamp on the back from like the original bar that bought it.
Wow, that's so cool.
And you can go to entertainment auctions, right? So electronic entertainment auctions, and you can buy everything from like old cigarette vending machines to pool tables to dartboards to old beat up arcade cabinets that don't work, and then give them a second life.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to, when I do have free time, is either play video games or work on video games.
I love that. That's so cool. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but first I just want to thank you so much for bringing, some sense of reason and science to the paranormal and the listeners here. And just to remind my listeners to check out everything that you've got going on and that you've done in the past and you've got coming in the future. Would you mind one more time just telling everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, sure. I know my name is a mouthful, but it's really easy to find all my stuff at charliemewshaw.com. The spelling will probably be in the episode title. So it's just myname.com, or find me on Instagram at Charlie_Mewshaw, MEWSHAW.
Thanks so much for listening. Remember, you are not alone if you've ever heard a bump in the night or caught something out of the corner of your eye. There are countless others who experience things they can't explain. And this podcast is your safe place to listen and share. Also, I want to remind everyone that this show is for entertainment purposes. I am not a professional paranormal investigator. I did not go to school to study this. I can only speak about my firsthand experiences. And with that, I'd love to mark the importance of spiritual inclusion. Your thoughts, ideas, and theories about the other side are welcome. And we know that so much of our common knowledge and perception about the paranormal stems from historical and cultural experiences. So we are open to your knowledge and understanding of things that we may be ignorant about or not fully understand. Let's learn and grow together. Stay spooky, and we'll see you next time. Hey ghoul friends, got a spooky story to share? Well, I want to hear about your haunts. Whether you've seen a ghost or something unexplainable, send your supernatural experiences to us at jauntyhaunts@gmail.com. That's JAUNTYHAUNTS@gmail.com. Or DM us on Instagram at jauntyhauntspod. That's jauntyhaunts_pod. You can also find us on TikTok and YouTube under Jaunty Haunts Podcast. I want to hear from you.